heart of every heart. Do not let our human hearts be broken by our merely mortal suffering here, but make our mortal human hearts break free to an unconditional love of you, that we may thus love all living beings with love's own true and truly broken heart. Chiravatarida Lavananda Samraj. Chiravatarida Lavananda Samraj. Beloved, inmost heart of every heart, do not let our human hearts be broken by our merely mortal suffering here, but make our mortal human hearts break free to an unconditional love of you, that we may thus love all living beings with love's own true and truly broken heart.
Good morning. I'm Jefferson Nunn, and I'm your host today for Liquid Health News, sponsored by Solvecare and Biotoxin Foundation. And we have a lot of information for you today, as there is a lot going on in the world of your health and just in general. I mean, scanning the news of today, it's almost, scary to try to figure out what's going on. But let me start off with, why should you listen to even me? What do I know, right? Well, let me share you a little bit of my own story as a part of this first broadcast for Liquid Health News. Over a period of many months, I was exposed to many different kinds of mold in a house that I was living in, and I experienced a wide variety of symptoms that was extremely painful, to the point that I could not sleep, I could barely eat, and so on. I went to many different doctors, probably, I haven't really counted, but over 30 doctors. And I'm coming from the world of IT, of checklists, of the rigors and standards that are applied there to make sure that things work right. And I was actually disheartened. I was just terrified at the sheer amount of just the lackadaisical attitudes that doctors would have towards the symptoms that I was reporting, and just their sheer lack of understanding or empathy, even of what I was going through. And it was a shock that I could go to the emergency room or I go to the doctor and I could leave with absolutely no help at all. And it took a long time before I found out what happened to me. And what happened to me is that a very important but small part of my brain had been fried by mold. That's the way it appears because there's no other logical explanation that I can find. The theory being that if you exclude whatever, if you read through everything that is possible and then you exclude whatever doesn't work, then whatever remains must be the truth, right? So, an MRI of my brain discovered that a part of my left thalamus is dead. And the left thalamus, by the way, is part of that part of the brain that controls a lot of different things, such as it's like the network switch for the brain. And if you don't have it, things break. You can end up with things like perhaps tinnitus, going 24 by 7, whole body pain. In fact, Lewy body dementia, the thing that Robin Williams suicided on, is in that part of the brain. And how might you get to that part of the brain, you might opine? Well, if you end up getting mold going up your nose into the back, there's a thing called a eustachian tube, and the eustachian tube goes right up into your brain. Isn't it awesome? So that's how toxins can get into your brain. That's one pathway. Another pathway is you can breathe it into your lungs, and it can get in that way. Another pathway is it goes down your throat, you ingest it, it goes to your gallbladder, and if you end up with gallbladder pain, they can do nothing for you. And if it breaks out of the gallbladder, now it's going into your stomach and it gets absorbed into your whole body and in your bloodstream. And then it's very much like COVID, where it attacks the whole body. So let's talk about COVID for a moment. And again, you don't have to believe me. You can read any of the articles on Liquid Health News that I put up there, and I've gone over a lot of this in great detail in some of those articles. But let's back up a step. Let's go back to the doctor thing before we even go further. So, as I said, I went to doctors, right? Um, they don't do checklists. In IT, we do checklists to determine a standard of care on our networks. Did we do this? Yes. Did we do this? No. Our governance in the IT world has been driven by business managers and ultimately the customer. We care about the customer. We care about what they think. Doctors, on the other hand, they have been driven by lawyers. Yes, lawyers. Those guys have determined the standard of care that we get. All those lawsuits have terrified doctors, and perhaps in an upcoming show, I'll interview another doctor that I can go into detail about that. He has in the past, and that's what governs that standard of care. So let's move on. Let's talk about the news of the day. And I'm going to share with you, even from my own Facebook, and you can see what I see. And perhaps you can understand a little bit more about what I think. So I must confess, my news feed is always interesting, but there was one particular group, if I can find it again, that is the toxic mold group. So let's start here. There's 27,000 people in this group. So let's start here. Air filters. Are they good? Absolutely. And let me tell you why. If you see behind me, I have one. And I keep it running 24/7 by 365. Why? There are particles in the air, otherwise known as smog, among other things, even mold particles, even just pick something. But even outside of that, just fresh air circulation is important. I have a monitor behind that that I've installed. It's called Aware, AWAIR. And you can see it at aware.com. If you go there, um, if it comes up, maybe I have to search it a different way. Getaware.com, all right? You can get this monitor and it'll tell you what's going on in your own air. You know, temperature, humidity. Humidity is important. You want to keep that down because mold tends to grow in the higher humidity ranges. But these other numbers are more important. CO2, chemicals, and PM 2.5. So let's talk about those. CO2, carbon dioxide. Did you know that if carbon dioxide goes above 1,000, that your brain starts to not work as well? And if it goes to 1,500, you start feeling sleepy. And beyond 2,000 parts per million, you start to get some really bad effects. And much beyond that, you can die. Now, there have been times that you may have been in a room with a bunch of other people and they seal all the windows and doors. As we breathe, we end up suffocating from carbon dioxide poisoning. If you've ever felt sleepy during a class, it may have been because carbon dioxide has gotten too high. An air sensor will help with that. Chemicals is another important aspect. And that's usually cleaning chemicals or pick something. Chemicals getting into the air can hurt you. An air filter can get rid of chemicals. An air filter can at least circulate the air to help reduce the chances of carbon dioxide poisoning. And further, it can get rid of mold. Now, you definitely want to clean mold, but you do not want to do it the way they're doing it here with your bare hands. No. You want to wear gloves at least. You want to wear a mask while you treat the mold, at minimum. There have been questions that I've seen over time in these forums about even this. When mold gets into your body and it starts to hurt, and it seems like nobody can help, and there's no chance of getting information from any reliable source, it's like, what do? You can do what I did. Find a friend, anybody that is willing to listen to you. Call me. You know, you can find me on Facebook. Talk to me. I'm happy to talk to you. And I'm happy to listen to you, and I'm happy to help as much as I can. But I have seen on this forum too many people commit suicide because they could not deal with the pain. The worst that I ever heard was one person said he couldn't figure out if his dreams were nightmares or if the living nightmare was a dream. It can be that bad. With mold screwing up your body, with tinnitus driving you mad because you can't sleep because of the sound, with the pain, whole body pain keeping you up, and you pile on the aspirins and they do nothing, absolutely nothing, and you go to the doctors and they don't say anything or do anything, they just think you're making it all up and that you're crazy. Yes, this is the true in fact world that we're living in, and this is why I started Biotoxin Foundation to help with, along with others, to try to help people like this person, Candy Brooks. I hope someday, with sponsorship of the foundation, to have doctors, lawyers, and technical staff on hand, ready and willing and able to help. We are working towards that goal day by day to draw this group together in such a way that we can help anybody deal with this craziness. Thyme oil can help, but ideally, if there's mold up in the ducts, you want to just plain get rid of it, with a treatment. I mean, it might knock it down a bit, but it's not going to kill it all. So, something to think about. There's been other posts in here that I've read about, will one particular supplement help or another? There are a lot of different supplements that can help. There are some supplements that can hurt. Definitely be careful with things like Chinese medicine. I was given some Chinese medicine, and come to find out, uh, this is way back in the past when I was a kid. But come to find out, one of the elements of Chinese medicine that they gave me was the same compound that's in sheetrock. Um, you know, drywall. So definitely be careful with what just random people give you. Many of the supplements don't have any problems, but if you do have things like metal poisoning, chelation therapy can help. But during chelation therapy, you definitely want to make sure that you're eating right. So let's start with some of the principles of how to recover from something like this based on what I've learned. All right? Let's start there. So, when you're trying to just figure your way through this, it can get really um, overwhelming, right? But there's a website and a book that can help you through this. It's called The Great Liquid Diet. All right? And I would encourage anybody to just give it a try, even for as little as a week. It can make a difference. It may not fix everything, but the core principle is if you give your body pure fuel in the purest amount of form that is easily digestible, and in other words, there's no toxins in it, it's pure, it's clean, it's raw, it's awesome, it's like pure fuel, 99 octane type stuff. If you put that into your body now doesn't have to work as hard. When you give it solid foods, it has to work very hard to break it down. That's energy that is spent trying to break down food. And that energy is not spent repairing other parts of the body. So you give it raw fuel. Now that's one part of your body that's not having to work as hard. And it's getting everything it needs and the nutrients that it needs to fix other parts of the body, right? So that's one aspect. Another aspect is if your gut isn't in the right place, even to properly process the foods, well, there's a way through that too, as I've learned, and it's called biome. Biome was the better one that I found of the two or three that are out there. But certainly almost any of them would be good. And you don't need to do the monthly plan. You can just do the one-off, 129 bucks. And I know the money can be hard to come by. We are working on that. Again, reach out to me or others. If you're trying to figure your way through this, we will do our best to help. But with at Biotoxin Foundation, that's biotoxin.foundation. And I'll put the website up here and in the chat and so forth later. But Biotoxin Foundation, we will try to help. All right. But if you get the biome test and you figure out what's going on with your gut, they'll tell you, hey, buy this particular prebiotic or this particular whatever biotic, whatever compound to rebalance your gut so that when you do something like the Great Liquid Diet, it now makes a difference, right? So these are some of the tools that I've used, and in upcoming shows, we're going to bring on doctors. We're going to bring on lawyers. We're going to bring on technical experts. And we're going to do deep dives into all of this to understand, the hows and whys that these things work. So that as we go into this COVID-based world, we can all have a better chance of surviving because the last thing that we want to face is something like a lung transplant after getting COVID as a way to perhaps survive. And as the nurses and doctors are being overwhelmed, I think it's better that we take a better approach to trying to live well, or to try to do as well as we can, through these different challenges that we have. Let's talk about COVID for a moment. And again, if anybody has any questions or comments, post it to the chat. I would certainly welcome to hear your thoughts and opinions. This is a live show. Even if you post it after the show ends, we'll certainly get back to you and a later show. So COVID, it's a very odd disease. It really is. And if you research it, as I have, it attacks the blood vessel walls, the cell walls of the blood vessels, right? That's what it attacks. It's a very unique virus. No other virus to date has specifically targeted that part of the body, and that's why it's so similar to toxin poisoning. Any kind of toxin poisoning, as it runs through the body, it just burns and fries, and it's like death by 1,000 cuts. You have no idea where it's going to end up, and it ends up in these random places, and it hurts, right? So the people that end up with, not eating well and have other chemicals in their body, and they have other diseases, and that their body is spending energy on, um, they're going to be less able to withstand this kind of an attack that is just all over the body. I mean, do you understand? So yes, if you live healthy, and they have a study that you'll see it in an upcoming release of Liquid Health News. There's a study that said if you have a cleaner diet, you have a much better chance of surviving COVID. That is to say that if you give your body the pure food that it needs and the pure fuel that it needs to live day by day, you have a better chance of surviving COVID than the people that are eating Big Macs, drinking Coke, and smoking 3 times a day. Those people are the ones that are ending up with lung transplant needs. Which raises all kinds of questions. It's like, how do we survive this COVID world? And Solve.care is one of the ways through this. Right now, as I said earlier in the show, lawyers are driving this discussion about our health care. And Solve Care changes that. With their distributed global telehealth exchange, any doctor and any nurse can now go directly to a patient and provide the care that is needed without all that mess in between. It's all gone. There are tens of thousands of doctors on the exchange already from all over the world providing care right now in a way that is sustainable, economical. Anybody can use it. It is much cheaper. If you're paying $3,000 a month to Cobra, I would say dump it, get Solve Care, and get the help you need right now. Because paying $3,000 a month is not going to do you any good as compared to getting the care you need right now through Solve Care. All right? So, yeah, it's a scary world, but there are ways through it. And there's ways to live better, to live healthier, and to live more sustainably. And we're working towards some of those much better goals so that people that end up in rooms like this, that it's just absolutely horrifying. Just, oh my God. If you see a room like this, run. You're better off in your car than a room like this. This room will kill you. This room will kill you. Look at, ugh, this is bad, bad mold. If you see this, just leave. And this is what I'm saying. You know, this is why I started Biotoxin Foundation. We need, if I had enough money, and I'm going to be trying to get money, if you will, from anywhere that I can. We're applying for grants. We need actually some help applying for grants. If you can just donate your time, I have a list of grants that we can apply for. There's so many out there. And I can only do so much in a day. But we need to be applying for grant money. Why? I want to build a little gadget that's like this big. You know, remember Star Trek, that little whirring device, that they use while they're scanning around the room? I want a little device like that that you can look at your iPhone and go, holy crap, this room has got a bunch of toxic mold. I'm leaving. Or, holy crap, this room has a bunch of chemicals in it that could kill me. I'm leaving. An early warning system would be nice. Um, there's a lot of things that would be very useful. Like I said, having doctors on staff that can help us with, excuse me, making sure we don't end up with crazy problems like even I have. We live in a world where air pollution is actually killing us. And on top of that, COVID is actually killing us. And it's that fine, remember we were just talking earlier, ppm 2.5? ppm 2.5 causes all kinds of problems. There was another study, and I had it up on the Biotoxin website. It's probably still up there somewhere. Um, this one. Every year, worldwide, 600,000 children under the age of 5 die from diseases caused by or exacerbated by air pollution. And you add to that COVID, and you have a recipe for disaster. So you see, this is a lot to take in. And I would encourage you to tune in on our upcoming shows Share this with your friends. Share this with your neighbors. Share this with everybody. I am not going to talk about politics. I am not going to talk about religion. Sorry, other than to say, I pray to the divine for help because we're going to need it. Absolutely. Because this is hard to navigate through. How do we navigate through this world of plastic rain, of random viruses that can break out at any time, of chemicals that are everywhere in our environment, mold that just seeps in from everywhere, Lyme disease, one bite, and you could be in pain for the rest of your life. And there's no real effective treatment. There's no real effective cure yet to that. Just like they don't really have a cure for COVID, they're coming out with a vaccine for COVID. That is to say, if you didn't get COVID, then they have a way to stop you from getting COVID, at least for a short while. But if you got COVID and it messed up your body and it put holes in your lungs, then you've got problems. And they don't have an exact cure other than to give you a new lung if somebody matches. And oh, by the way, if you get that new lung, now you're on immunosuppressive drugs for the rest of your life. That is to say, one random bout of pneumonia and you're dead. So, yes, this is shocking, the world in which we live. Tune in to upcoming shows. This is Jefferson Nunn. I am a director of the Biotoxin Foundation. Liquid Health News is our official publication. We're sponsored in part by Solve.care and by viewers like you. Please join us. We need all the help that we can get. Like I said, completely apolitical. We're just coming together as a community to overcome this great threat to our health. Join us, please. We need your help. Thank you for listening.